So, picture this. A top government official issues a really stark warning. He says, criticize political leaders online and you could face severe punishment. But almost immediately, an activist group fires back, calling it a direct threat to democracy itself. Today, we're diving deep into this high-stakes battle over what you can and maybe can't say online.
This whole clash really forces us to ask a massive question, one that pretty much defines our lives online today. With social media and AI everywhere, where exactly is the line between exercising your free speech and committing a criminal act?
Yeah, this whole thing didn't just kind of simmer, it exploded. And it was all sparked by one single, really powerful statement from a government official. Okay, let's take a look at just how fast this all happened. On December 2nd, 2025, you have Deputy Minister Sunil Watagala making his controversial statement. Then, get this, just 2 days later, on December 4th, the activist group Internet Media Action is already out with a public rebuttal. That is a super quick escalation.
All right, so what exactly did the deputy minister say that caused such a huge uproar? Let's break down the government's stance, piece by piece.
So, at the very heart of the government's position is this. The Deputy Minister for Public Security, Sunil Watagala, called for a major crackdown on anyone, and I mean anyone, criticizing political leaders online. There's really no ambiguity there. It's a very direct statement. Now, it's important to note, the Deputy Minister wasn't saying all criticism should be punished. He specifically pointed to what he called malicious character assassination attacks and the spreading of false opinions. And he added another layer here, a really crucial one. He said this isn't just happening on social media. It's actually being amplified by AI technology.
And this is where things really ramp up. The deputy minister didn't just call for any punishment. He specified severe punishment. And he said it should be carried out using the country's emergency law. We're talking about a set of rules that gives the government some pretty extraordinary powers. That is a huge escalation.
The legal language he used is also really, really important. He suggested that people shouldn't be treated as suspects, someone who's being investigated. Instead, they should be treated immediately as the accused. Now, that implies a much faster legal process, one that could potentially skip over some really key investigative steps. Okay, so that's the government side of the story. Now, let's look at the other side of this. In response to everything the minister said, a media advocacy group came out with a really powerful rebuttal. They basically said the government was crossing a very dangerous line. The group that's really leading this charge is called Internet Media Action, or IMA for short. And since they're a media advocacy organization, well, you can bet they immediately saw the deputy minister's statement as a huge threat to free speech. And this is really the core of their whole argument. IMA came out and said, look, this isn't just some bad policy idea. They see it as a direct and serious threat to the freedom of expression, which is a fundamental right for every single citizen in Sri Lanka. So when you put these two views side by side, you can really see the heart of the conflict, can't you? On one hand, the government sees the emergency law as a necessary tool to stop what they call malicious online attacks. But on the other hand, IMS sees that exact same thing as a blatant abuse of power that's just designed to shut down criticism. We're talking two completely opposite ways of looking at the same law. So why is IMA sounding the alarm so loudly? What's the big deal? Well, for them, it's not just about this one statement. It's about the potential ripple effect, what's often called a chilling effect, that it could have across the entire country. Let's dig into those broader implications. So just to make sure we're all on the same page, let's quickly talk about what's at stake here. Freedom of expression, right? It's the fundamental right for anyone to share their opinions and ideas without being afraid that the government is going to retaliate or censor them or take legal action. And that principle, that is at the very center of this whole debate. And AMI's position on this is, well, it's crystal clear. They're saying criticism is not a crime, period. They argue that when a government starts punishing criticism just because it's afraid of it, that's when you start doing serious, serious damage to the very foundations of democracy. So these are the specific consequences, those chilling effects that IMA is warning about. First, it could intimidate regular citizens and activists. That fear of punishment could lead to widespread self-censorship. People just stop speaking their minds online. And all of that, in their view, adds up to a dangerous restriction of fundamental rights and ultimately real harm to the country's democracy.
But IMA didn't just complain about the problem, they actually proposed a clear way forward. They put out a direct call to action with some very specific demands for how to resolve this whole thing.
Okay, so their demands really boil down to two clear steps. Step 1, they say Deputy Minister Watagala has to unequivocally withdraw his statement. Just take it back completely. And step 2, the government itself needs to put out a clear, official statement saying that it is committed to protecting freedom of expression.
Ultimately, what IMA is really asking for here is a solid guarantee. They want the government to go on the record and publicly state that freedom of expression is a fundamental right that cannot be restricted or shut down, not by emergency law and not by any other legal provision. And that brings us back to the huge question this whole conflict raises for all of us. In this digital age, with social media and AI changing everything, who gets to decide what speech is dangerous? Who draws that line? That's really the question at the very heart of this entire debate, and it's one we're all going to have to grapple with.